Hi everybody, it's Jay and I am back for a very special sneak peek video preview of this week's new release here on Say with Jay. It is our holiday edition. Now I've got to get that put back on my front door pretty quickly, so let me say how excited we are that this week's new release is the first of 4 weekly episodes of Jessie Gussman's sweet romance novella, Christmas Car Kerfuffle. It is a fantastic story, and I cannot wait for you to hear the first episode this Friday. Now, because this Friday is Christmas Eve, I wanted to include something special along with that episode. So, as a warm-up, I guess you could say, I'm going to also read the Christmas story from the book of Luke. So I hope you'll join with us on Friday to hear that. Now, the book of Luke most certainly outlines the reason for the season, but there's also a poem that always seems to get me in that Christmas spirit. Maybe you're the same way. I'm talking about "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." I thought I would read that for you here today before we give you a small sample of the first episode of Christmas Car Kerfuffle. Now, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" was written by Clement Moore in 1823. That makes it 199 years old. And I guess that is the very definition of a timeless classic. So sit back, hope you enjoy this, and then stay tuned for a little sneak preview of Christmas Car Kerfuffle. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to the objects below, when, what to my wondering eyes would appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. "Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all." As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my hand and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, and then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. Now it is time for a little taste of episode 1 of Christmas Car Kerfuffle. Hope you enjoy it, then hope you'll come back and listen to the entire presentation this Friday here on Say with Jay. Her car was gone. Blythe Mason looked at the dark blue sedan in front of her. Nope, it was similar to her car. Same color, same general shape, same make and model. But she peeked in the back window again. No booster seat. No coloring books on the floor. No backpacks, pencils, children's meal toys, or little trucks or dolls on the floor. Dread settled in her stomach as she fingered the key fob. It felt the same as hers, looked the same. But since this vehicle in front of her wasn't her car, the key fob could hardly be hers. She eyed the trunk, her heart pounding in her chest. Maybe Zayden, her brother-in-law, ex-brother-in-law, and owner of this auto repair shop, had cleaned out the interior of her car when he changed the oil and put the snow tires on. Maybe he'd forgotten to put the booster seat back in. If he had detailed the interior, it would be the first time in 4 years since he started servicing her car for free. Swallowing, she double-pressed the button to open the trunk. Please let them be in there. She didn't close her eyes to pray, and the prayer wasn't even finished in her head when she knew it hadn't been answered. At least, not with anything other than a no, which seemed to be God's standard answer to her. Slamming the trunk shut, she clicked the lock on the key fob. Spinning on her heel, she marched down the sidewalk and back into the empty shop. Zayden's shop was always busy, but he had said he was planning on closing early this afternoon and staying closed through Christmas. He graciously agreed to do her car very last minute, when she'd explained that her front tire kept going flat. He wouldn't charge her for the tires, nor for the oil change that he probably did. He would have checked everything else out too. He always did. She didn't know anything about cars, and Zayden had a vested interest in keeping hers safe, since he loved his niece and nephew and wouldn't want anything to happen to them. So she trusted him. Of course, she had also trusted his brother, her ex-husband Ken, and that had been a major mistake. One that she'd put behind her. She needed the reminder. This time of year, being a single mom sucked more than any other. She wasn't even going down that rabbit trail. Right now, she needed to figure out what happened to her car. Her low heels clicked in the vast, empty interior as she crossed it, angling for the office door where Zayden's head was visible, bent over some papers on his desk. Getting things in order before he left the shop for the Christmas break, probably. She tapped on the glass before opening the door. His eyes, a deeper, darker green than Ken's, widened when he looked up. Then he stood immediately. "Is there a problem with your car?" he asked, his brows knitted. "Kind of." She tilted her head and tried not to notice the way his t-shirt strained over his chest. "It's not mine." She almost smiled at the expressions that crossed his face. First, confusion. Then it became thoughtful, probably as he tried to figure out what had happened. Dawning shock. Horror. The last one scared her. His face scrunched up as though he knew the next few minutes were going to be painful. "You're sure?" It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes." He blew out a breath and lifted his cap to run his hand through his hair. Ken always kept his neatly trimmed, but Zayden's had a tendency to grow long, like he couldn't remember to get it cut more than once every 6 months. I'll call Joe, but I'm pretty sure I know what happened. He picked up his phone, his brows drawn together. We had another car in here, same color and model as yours. It broke down in town, and the owner rented a car to get home to New York. Her sister lives here, though, and offered to drive the car to New York since she was going up anyway for Christmas. His lip twisted in a small apology, and he raised his hand, palm up. She wouldn't have known it was the wrong car. His mouth flattened. Joe should have known better. Don't blame Joe, Blythe said quickly, even though she had no idea what she was going to do about the fact that all the gifts, every single one that she had bought for her kids, were in the back of the car, which was, apparently, in New York. She didn't want Joe to get fired. I know he's a good mechanic, and he's always been so nice to me when I'm here. Joe was the type of man who didn't seem like he had a lot of book smarts, but he could fix just about anything. Well, in his defense, the woman who owns the car has a name very similar to yours. He probably didn't take the time to sound out the name, but just grabbed the key under the name that looked right. Yes, I totally understand. However, I'm wondering how I'm going to get my car back. Well, the sister is coming back down here after Christmas. That's not going to work. She interrupted him. All of my children's Christmas presents are in my car. My mother is actually watching my children, and I was planning on wrapping everything tonight. She trailed off, tears, unexpected, stinging her eyes. Why did nothing ever go the way she planned? She had intended to finish college but got married instead. She'd intended to be married forever, but Ken cheated. Christmas gifts might seem like a small thing in comparison, but this was her Christmas with the kids. They were with Ken last year, and he'd taken them to some big ski resort in Montana. If that's what he did for a 6- and 8-year-old, who knew what his gifts in future years would be? She couldn't compete with him and his new wife, and she wasn't even going to try. But she had wanted to make Christmas magical all the same. Zayden's dark eyes studied her across the desk. He was taller than Ken and broader in the shoulders, but the real difference was in their personalities. Guess I'm driving to New York this evening, then. His lips curved up. That's a pretty good hiding spot. I always looked under my mother's bed and in her closet. Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.